And this is where we step into the world of culture, right? Processes will not stick without culture.
Welcome to another fabulous episode of the B2B Sales Trends Podcast, my lovely people. The show that brings you hacks, tips, thought leadership to the topic of B2B selling. And in our environment, more than ever, we need smart people to share with us what are these trends, what are these issues that we have to help solve, and how we should behave and drive to sell more, to win more, and to do that faster. My name is Kendlbacher, and today's episode is about how do we stay coherent in these complex deals. There's a lot to these complex deals, and I am super, super pleased to have a fabulous expert for our episode today. And the expert is Olga Traskova. Olga works for Birdeye and is the VP of Revenue Ops there. Welcome to the B2B Sales Trends Podcast, Olga.
Thank you so much for having me here, Harry. Excited to talk about the coherent sales process with you.
Love it. Let's kick this off by giving us a quick introduction about you, your background, and your current schedule at work, and how we got to this place, if you would. That would be fabulous.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, I lead revenue operations at Birdeye, and I, of course, partner across marketing, sales, customer success, enablement, analytics to turn strategy into execution day by day. Over the last year and a half, we enhanced and we rebuilt our core go-to-market mechanics. We've improved the forecast hygiene. We rolled out CPQ, and then right after that, we simplified CPQ. We established the content governance with the product marketing team, and we also launched the AI-assisted call intelligence. So we've been very, very busy, and that is very much resonating with the topic of our discussion today. We have been doing all of this so that the leaders can trust the data and reps can get back to selling, maximizing sales reps' time and keeping their process consistent or coherent. That is my number one priority. I focus on the consistency of the sales motion end to end, day by day, and coaching the system so that improves every month and every quarter.
You touch on so many important elements, and obviously when you started talking about this is about strategy and its execution, and I really believe there's so much strategy out there, and there's so much failure of that strategy out there because typically there is a missing link between the piece of paper the strategy is on and how do we execute that in front of our clients. So thank you for mentioning that. And I love your intro about consistency, because consistency is so key in whatever we do. But let's talk about something that we chatted about in our preparation call for this that I thought was very interesting when you shared, why coherence really matters. Qualification isn't always strong, and we know that. And in fact, only, 21% of marketing leaders prioritize moving beyond individual leads to buying groups or opportunity-based qualification. So even when baseline qualification exists, deals can sort of go off course. So from your perspective, what typically happens as opportunities progress, and how coherent do sales processes usually stay from start to finish in this environment?
You're absolutely right. The higher in enterprise market, up market we go, the more fluid sort of it might become, right? And deals drift and deals slip because moments of change aren't captured.
Yeah.
As opportunities progress, new stakeholders show up.
Yeah.
Priorities might shift. The original business problem, the original pain that we were trying to solve might get fuzzy.
Right.
Without guardrails. This, say, we talk about the opportunity sales process in a CRM, right? The stage names, they stay, but then the narrative around them falls apart. So for us, as we have been executing on a forecasting accuracy as a strategic goal, right? It all comes down to your sales process in your system and the sales process adherence by sellers. So we built very tight exit and entry criteria between the stages. We created a set of key fields for every stage that are now being populated via conversational intelligence tool. Before that, reps would have to fill it in. And we are making sure that we always sort of go back to the same question of a compelling event, of a pain, of a new stakeholder, of a new champion, and continuing sort of this rediscovery process, right? Without this guardrails, the process will fall apart. And consistency here is making sure that the story, the stakeholders, and success metrics, they stay in a lockstep from first call to signature. So instead of like making it as a bingo card and checking the boxes, you always keep on this rediscovery, requalification process going on.
You know, it's so interesting that you say that when we talk to clients, and I typically say that I've been in business doing what I'm doing for 25 years now, and I've worked with hundreds of companies, and I've seen many sales processes. Some are 3 steps, some are 10 steps, some are better, some are worse, but they all have one thing in common, right? It's what salespeople trying to avoid to use them, right? But it sounds like for your system, you've managed or you've implemented some elements to the sales process to ensure that people are really using it and keeping them accountable to do that.
That's right.
What would you say are the 2 things that make the difference in getting salespeople to use the sales process? And that, by the way, will be a revelation to pretty much everybody on who's listening to this.
I don't know how to frame it, in a positive way, but it all comes to enforcing. Unfortunately, it all comes to the system enforcements. And, we don't run democracy here, right? There's no way for you to escape certain requirements and validations. 100% of our external calls are being recorded unless the prospect or customer asks to stop the recording. 100% of those calls are being transcribed, analyzed, and then pushed through the systems. And this is all for us to, on the strategy level to ensure, the forecasting accuracy, pipeline coverage, et cetera. And on the rep level and deal level to ensure, again, we stay close and consistent to the sales process. So a lot of this is not nice to haves. These are must haves coded in the system. You will simply not be able to start a demo before you put in certain things, before you add 2 people into your opportunity to contacts that are decision makers or play a significant role in your opportunity, right? And the most common breakpoints for coherence, right, they are the handoffs from MQL to SAL or meeting set, from SAL to SQL, from BDR to NAE, et cetera. So we ensure that these handoffs, they're also very well documented in the system, right? And it's not like we don't trust the reps. Again, for us to make the process consistent, I need to code it out. I need to make sure the system supports and there's no fluctuation. On top of that, my RevOps team conducts a weekly sort of QA of the largest deals, right? The deals that are must win for us this month or this quarter, the deals that are carrying the segment or carrying the month and the quarter. We need to ensure that all of the things are intact, right? That there's always a next step. As one of the sales leaders was saying, is if there's no next step on the deal is lost, right? So we ensure certain things are in there. Next steps, mutual action plans, an amazing instrument to keep us close to a customer, right? And other things as deals progress through the stages, we'll look at those key data points. So there's a system in place, plus there's a sort of manual QA and review.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that those are really, really good insights. And while you were talking, I was thinking about sometimes in these large deals, priorities sort of evolve.
That's
the
right.
buying groups are shifting. And even the problem that you started with has changed in the mind of the buyer, and they needed to solve something differently. So what practices help your sales teams to sort of have the confidence to revisit that discovery and qualification in an intentional and thoughtful way, rather than treating that just as a phase? Oh, it's a step 2 in my sales process, and I have to go back and I have to quickly tick it to move on. How do you ensure that?
Yeah. Well, working in a lockstep with enablement team, right? So we're training reps on sort of rediscovery. Mm-hmm. We need to revalidate the problem, the players, and the plan. On a weekly basis, we do have what we call a big deal review. Those are the large deals that might involve multiple internal stakeholders, executive sponsors internally, solution engineers, legal involvement, finance involvement. Some other internal teams might be part of this deal. So we would have this weekly big deal review with a lot of cross-functional collaborators, right? When we look into every large deal and we do check-ins on reality, what has changed? Is the compelling event still relevant? Are we still, assessing the pain, and is pain acute? Were we able to educate the champion? Have the stakeholders changed? Have we introduced any other? What are the levels of those people that we are involved in? Are we going up in the chain, right? Because we do have data that proves and supports that C-level involvement drives our win rates up. VP level involvement drives our win rates up. If we have 3 and more contacts, and the more senior they are, we're able to get to 40-45% win rates, right? This is where we want to be. So we review each deal with that, right? What is the risk? What could potentially derail this deal? What are the risks? We're now in August, right? Dealing with all the summer months, people go on vacations, that might cause deal slippage. That's the very obvious one. Is there a competitor in the picture as well? What is the competitor's deal? How are they, bidding against us? So we as a cross-functional team, we discuss all of those points, and we're pulling in, if needed, we can even pull in a CEO to help us with this deal. And then based on that, we refit. How do we adjust? Should we come with the new pricing strategy? Should we come with a new pilot strategy? Should we offer a competitive buyout, right? And that's when we have the finance people on that call that could advise us on, the best strategy over there. So it is this weekly rhythm that, the teams have adjusted to, and, we're using, again, all of these data points. Starts with the foundation, with the sales process. You first need to trust your sales process. You need to trust there is a consistency and the reps are adhering. So when you review the deal, there's no question around, is it true or false, right? You don't review the reality of the deal.
Very interesting. And so, at Global Performance Group, we've built an entire methodology around this idea of outcomes, right? So we help sellers frame conversations around the outcomes their clients can deliver for their own customers. So the process of sort of successfully closing a deal, includes other core practices as well. So obviously the outcome conversation is key, but it includes other things as well, such as, and you've mentioned that, champion building. How do we uncover really pain, additional needs, and so forth? And understanding the compelling event also matters too. How do you see teams sort of balance that big picture conversation with staying strong with some of the very cool fundamentals that you put in place?
Yeah. We're also very much focused on the outcomes. I feel like outcomes is the new, is this new, shiny object within the SaaS world that everyone is driving towards outcomes and focusing on those.
Yeah.
And they frame why we are here, in the deal, right? Why are we even having these conversations? And fundamentals, they show how we got here. So one is not possible without the other.
Right.
We tie the customer outcomes with a real champion and a real pain and a real compelling event, right? So those are all fundamentals. This is how we got here. Where do we go from here? Why we're here? That is the outcome. And that is the importance of having, the strong enablement and all of the surrounding resources to help an enterprise rep, frame those outcomes and focus on objections handling, or focus on pain discovery, focus on educating your champion. Big picture without a champion is just is just poetry. So it's
Exactly.
you need to have some teeth, as my CEO says in it. He says, Olga, build a process that has teeth in it, or Olga, come to me with a solution that has teeth in it. Fundamentals without outcomes is paperwork, right? It's never going to progress. It's going to die off. So, that's what enterprise rep is sort of focusing on, right? And that's why I believe that AI will not replace enterprise reps, because the higher you go up in the segments, the bigger deals you deal with, you need to engage multiple stakeholders and you need to carry this very complex process, right? Where you a trusted advisor and a industry expert and a product expert and a thought leader and a therapist of some sort, because you would understand your prospects or your customers' team and pains more than they do, So you're able to dig into those. And one of the instruments that we have adopted, which is again simple, but a lot of things that are the best, they're very simple things, which is mutual action plan. And at first we had some resistance internally from reps, just not understanding what's the big deal of it, like how it could help me. But it is something that you work with on a customer and keeps the customer accountable as well. It shows that they are bought into your process. And now our teams are using mutual action plan as an instrument to sort of drive close deals and drive customer accountability, right? This is what we're agreed on. And a lot of times what we discover is that a customer might not know their internal process. So when they are building a mutual action plan together and they start talking about procurement or security review or legal or whatnot, turns out that, a champion that we're working with might not be fully aware. So it's important for us to understand, those gaps beforehand so we can address them again, because that could result in our deal slippage.
There's this, we use this tool that we call key agreements throughout the sales process. So instead of the sales process being a ticking the box exercises and here are the things that you have to do, it's really what are the key agreements at each stage of that sales process, right?
That's right.
You agree upon with the prospect or the client. So is there a necessity to change? Do I have access to all the stakeholders? Do we have agreement with that on budget and timeline? So it takes it from the salesperson assuming and saying it him or herself it's an agreement with the prospect. And I completely agree that customer accountability then is huge. And it's a massive, massive improvement in win rates when people do that. So really cool to hear that you guys are doing that.
100%. And to me, that's the source of the ultimate truth, right?
Yeah.
Because fields and Salesforce, that's great. Enter and exit criteria, that's great. But it's some of my internal mechanics that I put in place. When I see that there's a live mutual action plan and I see that a customer is editing it, that shows me that they're actually bought into the process. That is for me is the ultimate source of truth of what's going on.
The challenge that we always see with this, though, and I'm curious if you see the same thing. So great. We have this we call them key agreements throughout the sales process, and they are an agreement with the prospect. And the nature of an agreement means that it has to be in a way negotiated, right? So you're negotiating sort of access, you're negotiating sort of, the necessity to change, and you are agreeing upon all these things. So that's great. What we find is that salespeople really hate to do that because in their mind, they're thinking, oh no, my job is to create a relationship right now. And so why would I be asking for things early on in the sales process? I may be destroying more than I can build here. So it really requires, that's based on our experience, requires sort of that mindset and skill set change that is actually a good thing to continue to ask for things of the prospect and the client early in the sales process.
That's right.
That something that you see too?
Absolutely. As I said, when we rolled out in the beginning of the year, the mutual action plan, we had to go through multiple trainings and enablement sessions around it, how to frame, how to start building this together. One of the approaches that we adopted is that we build the mutual action plan together with the customer. It's not just we come with a standardized template. We do have a standardized template, but we would also do a screen share call with the customer where we would start typing in the key steps in your buying process, right? And then we build on top of that. And that's how we engage the customer. That is how we frame the conversation. For me as RevOps, I need to translate this outcomes into the quantified success metric. So every step of this, the key agreement, right? In your world or the mutual action plan milestones in our world has to be then translated into the success metric or, next step with a date, the next call scheduled. SOW is being worked on. NDA is being signed. Demo is being scheduled. Discovery is being set up, etc. So I always need to translate it into, so what's next? So that the deal, again, is not vague. It has some teeth in it. And there's a foundational element in every story.
Love it. Absolutely. Cultivating that kind of sales culture is tough, right? I mean, you have a great process and it sounds wonderful. A process alone, though, doesn't guarantee coherence. What role do leadership really play and revenue enablement, right, play in making such coherence becomes part of daily habits beyond just some sort of checklist for people? What are you doing for that?
And this is where we step on the world of culture, right? Processes will not stick without culture. On the leadership, it all comes from the leadership, I think. Leadership must model on the coherence and the forecast goals. And then enablement and RevOps, they make it a daily muscle memory. Reps look up to the leaders. So if my leaders, sales leaders, company leaders will model out the same approach, coherent, consistent approach on strategy and execution, the sales reps will buy in. We reward the behaviors that keep the story around each deal tight. when there are clean next steps, updated champions, outcome-based recaps, the benefits and the pains and compelling events are, very well documented. We call out those teams, we call out those reps, so we reward those behaviors on forecasting calls and the big deal review calls. But it definitely comes from the top, right? So everyone has to have a buy-in and align on the approach. And that is where revenue operations team and function has, I think, struggled for some time, right? RevOps has been a new thing in the past, 3-4 years, right? So getting that executive alignment has been tough. Not the case here. Whenever we sort of roll out any tactics, any execution approach, right? We ensure that, every leader on that forecast call or on the big deal review call is 100% aligned, and we request and we demand the same things. And we inspect the outcomes. We inspect the big picture things as well as the fundamentals in the pipeline.
Yeah. This has been a fascinating conversation, Olga. My last question on every podcast, as you know, is the share with me, what are the top 3 things that, in your opinion, elite salespeople need to execute to be elite salespeople? What are the top 3 things that nowadays salespeople need to execute to be an elite sort of salesperson? What would those be? And think about it as number 1, number 2, and number 3.
And my number 1 would apply to not just a salesperson, but I would say to any person that I hire or any person that I would love to see, myself working with. And something that I would love to see in my kids, is curiosity.
Right.
Relentless pursuit of why and so what, and why it matters, for whom it matters, how can we do better, reflecting on what happened, and just learning, and then from there, I would say, comes the secondary one, which is, once you have this curiosity and you reflect and you pursue of why and what and why not, then it's the orchestration, multi-threading, being inventive with tactics, being creative. I see the elite salespeople as those cowboys. There's a sales process that I might be building, and they would follow the sales process, but they take a step further and they get very creative in their outreach, right? They get very creative of how to use all of the tools that are available to them, right? And I do have videos from my best salespeople that tell me, this is how I tie in together Sales Navigator and Zoom Info and Sales Loft and Salesforce and this and this and this, and this is how I combine all of these tools that are available to me together to create this, this sort of cadence or this type of outreach. And that's how I'm building my champions in this deal. So orchestration would be the second one, using all of the tools and all of the tactics that are available to you, and always you sort of like staying on top of what's next. And now AI, I feel like, is the next big thing, or is already a big thing. A lot of the reps are using AI tools, to help with account summaries and account intel, etc. And then, of course, I would love for them to make my life easier. And if they could have an operational rigor, meaning updating their CRM daily, with clarity, next steps and translating, what's going on in the deal into the reality to help me with the forecasting accuracy and some analytics, would be great.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Olga, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on this episode today. So thank you. I know our listeners are super, super appreciative of your insights and your thought leadership. So thank you for taking the time.
I had a wonderful time talking to her. Thank you so much for having me.
My lovely people, there are 2 calls to action for you. Go to the B2B Sales Trends.com site, subscribe, share this or other episodes with people you think would benefit from the wonderful insights that Olga has shared with us today. Remember, her top 3s are curiosity, creativity, innovation, or orchestrating the deal, and then obviously be compliant and using tools and so forth. So I think it's great insight. So go also to globalperformancegroup.com and to the B2B Sales Trends podcast on YouTube. Look after yourself until the next time. And of course, look after your loved ones and your B2B customers. All the best. Bye-bye.